In conversation with Pamilerin Jacob. Pamilerin Jacob is a poet and editor whose poem have appeared in poetry magazine Lolwe 2035 Africa, Agbowó Frontier Poetry, the Rumpus and elsewhere. It was the second runner-up for Sevhage Poetry Prize 2019, co-winner Painful Poetry Context 2018. In 2020, he founded Poetry Column-NND, publishing one poet each week in Nigerian NewsDirect, a national daily. He is also the founder of the annual Nigerian NewsDirect Chapbook Awards and the Folorunsho Editors Poetry Prize. In 2022, alongside six other poets from the Unserious Collective, he helped establish the Unserious Collective Fellowship for Emerging Poets, which awards four poets every year. That same year, he launched Poetry Sango-Ota, a magazine focused on the poetics of plays, and Moremi Review, a publication dedicated solely to women poets. Pamilerin also served as an advisory board of Pepper Coast Lit, Liberia's leading literary journal, and is an associate editor at Olumo Review. He's the author of Gospel of Depression and Others. His manuscript, Blight Fantasia, was a finalist in the World McDonald Textbook Poetry Competition 2024. His poetry has been translated into Igbo and French. And on today's episode of Author Interview, it's my utmost pleasure, joy, and excitement to offer the show today, Pamilerin Jacob. How are you doing today, Pamilerin? Welcome to the show.
I'm okay. Good day. Good afternoon. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing very fine too. And I must say it's quite a joy really to have you on today, that we are here to sit down and have a conversation around your book. So thank you once again for coming on. So Pamela, we are going to get into the nitty-gritty of what inspired you to write Gospel of Depression actually. But then you've been a
Yeah.
writer now, you've been a poet for the past 9 years, which I find to be quite remarkable and quite amazing. Now I wanted to ask you, what was your first creative spark as as far as poetry is concerned? What is it that inspired you to write? And why did you choose the title for this book as Gospel of Depression? If you can run us through that, that would be great.
Okay. Well, one of the first things that sparked my creativity would have to be my dad. He was a journalist, and I used to come back from the house to see quotes on the walls. Various intriguing quotes by John Maxwell, blah blah blah. It was really, really intriguing. And I think when I was in GS SS1, I came back home one day and told me, there's this competition that a radio station has. I want you to write something. Within that, I was already writing, you know, I could not define what it was I was writing,
Yeah.
but he came back and said there's a competition by a radio station. I want you to apply for this. And I did. And it turns out we then forgot the password to the email, blah, blah, blah. But it turns out I was invited, but I didn't know. But I just carried on from there. And I would like to consider that, the earliest spark to continue what it is that I do today. So that's why it looks like, oh, 9 years. That's why it seems that way. And for Gospels of Depression, when I was working on the book, what informed the title is the context of it, the Nigerian context, the relationship between mental health and
Mm.
religion, and how it has been handled over the years. And I think when I was getting my treatment, one of the challenges I faced was the over spiritualization of symptoms. Yeah. And so this book was to not not talk down on religion, but to create a sort of voice within the context of the religion itself, that it's not all being possessed by demoniac or something. We don't do that when someone has malaria, for instance. Yeah.
Mm.
So that
Yeah.
was really the driving force behind it. That, okay, if someone has a challenge, within the Christian tradition, we have physicians, right, and God helps them.
Yeah.
So that's what informed the gospel, so to speak.
That's such an amazing tone, really. That's such a beautiful inspiration towards writing a book. And I love the background story about your father inspiring you, bringing in the creative force spark making you to, stylishly develop likeness and love for poetry. I think that's a beautiful one, really. And it's quite lovely to know about your bit of answer to what led to the title Gospel of Depression. And also, I want us to dive a little bit much deeper into that because your chapbook, Gospels of Depression, was written in just
Yeah.
1 month, which I found to be quite amazing as well. And that was why you were hospitalized, if I'm correct, yeah? Now, it blended
Yes.
rigorous spiritual themes and personal suffering. What did that experience teach you about the limit or liberation of poetic response? I would love your answer to this.
I'll say first off, I do think I would like to attribute it first and foremost also to the mania. There's the manic
Mm,
part of the whole illness, and then there's the part where you're dull and quiet. Yeah. So I would like to think that that 1 month there was this heaviness involved, and there's this great need to say something when you have a
mm,
message. I
yeah,
don't like to talk about poetry. Sometimes when you have the message and there's no other way to articulate it, you're forced
absolutely.
to. That's why the poems in the chapbook have certain forms that are unusual because that's how they kept dropping in that format. I wrote a lot more than those poems, but I had to pick
Mm,
from the, as an editor, we do all of this. So I wrote a lot of poems and I had to pick from there. And it was really exciting because the limits of language can be so engaging, like enclosing in the sense that when you submit poems to magazines, there's a
mm,
certain format that they expect. Maybe
absolutely.
you want couplets or. But then in the chapbook, I had this freedom. And I do think I also get that from my predecessors like Neil Yoshindari, the experiments he does with language where he breaks words, turn them around. And when you're in that headspace where the world is upturned, there is no there is no order, so to speak, and you feel like an outcast. You do
Mm,
whatever with language, and nobody's going to. You don't care what anybody says. You just do
yeah.
what happens, and it so happens that it was healing. Also, it was
Mm.
healing. I can attest to that. Yeah.
Wow, that's an amazing one. And I like you to show the book to the camera if you have it there with you, just so you can see what it looks like. That's Gospels of
I
Depression.
have this. No, I have met a memoir of
Oh, you
petals there.
perfect. That's another title, quite
Yeah.
beautifully. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. This came before that one. This
Oh,
came before that one. Also, it's in the hospital, by the way, but
wow.
there were various hospitalizations that
So that
happened.
that that quite that's quite introspective of me to want to ask you, how many books did you write while you were in the hospital? Like, I don't know.
Two, I wrote two in the
Oh,
past.
really?
They are 1 year apart. This was a year before Gospels of Depression.
Oh,
This was a year before Gospels of Depression. Yeah.
oh.
And when I was done with this, I worked on the chat Gospels of Depression. And yes, it taught me new things about poems themselves, the things that poems can do to
Mm.
you and for you. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's how I see it.
that's quite an amazing one, and that's even quite beautiful that you could pen some things down during this process, during this condition. Now, in an interview, you once described yourself as being in the business of interrogating light. How has that technique shaped the way you approach theology and doubt in poems like Antipastora for 20 Fixed Pathogen, the one that was published in the Almighty Poetry Foundation, and Theoria as it appears in DMQ Review? I would love your take on this.
Ah, business of interrogating life. It's more, I'll say, an openness, yeah, an openness to experience, to what
Mm,
happens. Because when we're back to the background of the poems in the chapbook now,
mm,
when you're given a way to live, a way to address certain conditions, certain headspaces um, that are harmful, and they're painted as light. You have to interrogate it. You have to ask questions. Yeah. I particularly love what Rilke said about, you leave the questions, but someday you find your way to the answers. You stumble your way to the answers, by the way. I find that pretty it's like a guiding light for me also. So whenever I'm presented with certain truths, with belief system, I do have to ask questions. And the fact that I am in a particular belief system today is because I interrogated my way there. So questions I have, I mean, Buddhism, Hinduism, just a whole, even Sufism, they were all very informative. I learned a lot from those traditions. And I found my way in the Christian tradition. It was all just business of interrogating all of those things and what they can teach me and what they can inform the forms. And it's been that's what I meant by that in any case, to always ask questions.
Wow, that's an amazing one, really. Thank you. Thank you for sharing with us.
Yeah.
And I wanted to go ahead and ask you this very lovely and important question. As the founder of Poetry Column-NND, Poetry Sango-Ota, among others, you
Yeah.
are actively involved in shaping the Nigerian and African poetry landscape. Now, how does this curatorial work interact with your personal voice? What is poetry evangelism?
Every writer exists in proximity with other contemporary writers. Yeah,
Absolutely.
and I do think that if we do not read what our peers are doing, what people are doing in Australia, what they're doing in Europe, what they're doing in America, Canada, or Arabic poetry, for instance, there's a lot to learn. Yeah.
Mm,
So all of these things inform my voice. I mentioned earlier about studying traditions. So there is a living, breathing tradition right now of people actively writing, people submitting to journals, releasing their books. So on the African continent, the same thing is happening
mm,
in Gambia, in Zimbabwe, everywhere. People are writing incredible poems, and that informs
yeah,
my concerns. And when that happens, you find out that there are people doing good work who there's this really lovely concern, important concern, I mean, for African poets, where it's easier to read an American poet than to read a poet from Gambia. It's easier
mm,
to read a Canadian poet than to read a poet from Zimbabwe. So those are the concerns where we have to poetry evangelism then is ensuring that it's as easy to read a poet from, say, Liberia, the way we can read a
mm,
poet from America. Yeah? And the way to do that is to carry on with this. It's a sense, really, yeah, where each person, regardless of where they find themselves as a poet,
yeah,
there are some people who uh, over the years, there are people who used to win prizes, so to speak, and now they've gone on to other concerns. So,
yeah,
poetry evangelism is that if you find yourself in banking and finance, you find yourself in whatever field, maybe accounting, find
yeah,
yourself in marketing, in that boardroom, in that office, bring the poetry with you. Don't leave it at the door. It's just something I picked from the Christian tradition where they tell every Christian, wherever you go, you carry Jesus with you. So the same
mm,
thing, poetry evangelism is that you carry the poetry in there. They're having a meeting and they're talking about CSRs. Why don't you think of a poetry prize?
mm,
Whatever little town you find yourself, okay, let's do a poetry prize. Okay, let's have books. Let's have, there's this lovely thing the Americans do. We should do that. If I'm going from Lagos to Ibadan, I should see, I don't know, I should see, broadside. I should see signboards of Niyo Shindari and his poems. I want that, yeah. I should see signboards of contemporary poets too. Say Ajidayo, say Imoson, say Jackie, Romeo Reagan. People like that, we should see the poems all spread around. Even, people who are doing incredible work in native languages. There's a group of people, there's an organization, Agbowó, yeah. They're doing incredible work too. So if we have much more of that spread all around in every state, down to the local government. I love the way the Americans do it again. Sorry, I'm going to be referencing that structure. I love that structure, yeah,
yeah,
where say it's down to the local government. Each local government has some sort of laureate, so to speak.
yeah.
Come on, see, I'm in this
That
little
would be
town here.
amazing.
Exactly. So it would be nice to have someone whose only concern is the propagation of poetry in that little town.
Mm,
Cool. That's what poetry evangelism is all
mm.
about in many cases. spreading it all around everywhere where they think it shouldn't be. Yes, that's what.
That's amazing to know. I love your energy talking about this, really. And I think as a founder of small book clubs and festivals as well,
Oh
I
my
feel
God.
that it's an amazing thing to do because it is just like you mentioned, it would be good to have if even down to the local government level, so we can have this
Yeah.
person is there, this person is there, a little bit of spotlight. It would have been very good and quite amazing. And that's, I want to say, quite
Mhm.
commendable, yeah, that you've had all of this lovely stuff ongoing, really. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, we do what we can with what we have right now.
Mm,
Yes, we do a lot more.
absolutely. Yeah, I'd
Yeah.
like to ask you because you've been experimenting with manuscripts like Contemplations on the Beloved and Blind
Yeah.
Fantasia. Now, without
Hmm.
imposing, what is emerging in this project, new concerns or forms that you don't feel ready to release yet?
Lovely question, by the way. First and foremost, I do think that the concerns in those works would be uh, an obsession, really, with the long form. Yeah.
Mm,
So that's how much I can say. I've got this again in our contemporary poetry. We have, due to the restriction of journals, yeah,
mm,
we're not often worried or obsessed about long poems, 5 pages of poetry. You know.
yeah.
Our predecessors used to do that. I mean, there's Waiting Laughter by oh God, I'm mentioning Yoshida already. But yeah, I just have to. So, Ni Yoshida, Waiting Laughter, for instance, Tade Guardiola, Sarah Testaments, those sort of
Mm,
books, they inform my obsession with the long poem. And there is a Sadiq Zuhogi. He has done something really lovely. Yeah.
mm,
So that's what informs Derek Walcott's The Prodigal, and Midsummer. Those are books that just give me this drive that what I'm working on, what I'm writing, and as much as the short poem is good. I mean, short
yeah.
poems, a lot of amazing short poems. Yeah, I do think that epic mood, that sustained energy in the poem,
Mm,
that narrative, that's what I'm after. So that's what those titles that you mentioned, kind of doing contemplations on the below,
mm,
I relate it to say Neruda's 100 Love Sonnets. Yeah,
mm,
long lyric that addresses my musical concerns as well as illness and all of those things all
mm.
in one. It's exciting. I mean, I'm all happy about about what I'm doing on the page, even though I feel a lot, on the page, and you're frustrated, but you're so excited because that
Yeah.
means, yeah, that means something exciting is going on there.
Wow.
Yes, so that's it.
That is really fantastic to know. Thank you very much for sharing. And yeah, I'd like you to tell us about your recent endorsement from the Art Council England. That would be very great. How does that
Yeah.
make you feel? You know, having gotten that, let's say, we'd love to hear from you.
First and foremost, I feel excited, right? It's a great opportunity to carry on doing what I think I'm doing here with
Mm,
what I have to go do it over there on a much more in a much more structured environment. I look to people like Kwame Dor, yeah, where from the diaspora they are able to do Kwame Dors of APBF, yeah, that they are able to do those ideas because there's some ideas that because you're here, you're able to carry them out. So the structure that is going to provide for me over there, I'm just excited for what that means beyond say this idea that you live in your home country, those fears and anxieties. But I'm much more excited about something like Pomidors and the work that he's doing over there, being in the diaspora and the structure that provides for him. So you see, he has all of these incredible ideas and is able to put them into action over there, right?
mm,
That's the drive. So that's why I'm excited because I know that being there is going to give that opportunity too. Because I do think we need about 100 pomodors on the continent.
Mm,
We need about 100, we need 200, a lot of
perfect.
people that will be doing all these things in all of these little corners. That's why,
Mm,
again, sorry, the American scene is the way it is because
mm,
there are tons of people doing what they're doing in their private
absolutely.
corners. The British scene, that's why the way it is. There are tons of people. I mean, look at what you're doing in your corner,
Mm,
right? You're doing incredible. So that's just what I think
mm,
it makes me excited for what's to come.
beautiful. And you're organizing a
Yes.
GoFundMe about that, as I know of, right?
Yes, yes, I am. I am. It's been I've received such incredible kindness from people I don't know. There are many
Mm,
explanations. People whose names are also there on, for instance, Bridget. I think there's a professor too over there who that I added to it. So I'm
mm,
really excited for that, and I'm happy for all the kind donations that have been coming in. And I know
that's
that we're going to meet
amazing.
the target. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I'm going to be leaving a link also in the description part of this interview where viewers would love to donate if you like to Pamilerin's fundraising. That would be very great and much appreciated. Yeah, so that's an
Thank
heads up link in
you.
the bio.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Really
And just apart from
excited.
the books we've mentioned so far, do you have any other works that you've authored or say you're currently working on?
I've worked on Paper Planes in the Rain with Judy Badmus. That was like 2019. I also had Cordial with Disillusionment 2021. That's in the US. And then in 2022, Songs of Repair. They're all chaps, by the way, all chaps.
Mm,
So they're all available on the site, like on my website. They're all available there. So what I'm working on, beyond what we spoke about earlier,
yeah.
Contemplations on the Beloved and Light Fantasia, there's this manuscript that is still in the very nascent stages. It's called Soli Matthias. Yeah? So it's based on the Reformation. It takes the idea from the Reformation, 15, 17, Luther, and all that,
Mm,
and just that language. And then, in the Reformation, there's something called five solas. Yeah, so the poems are going to follow that breakdown, but instead, it's talking about mine is Matthias. For the
mm,
Reformation, there are five solas, sola Christus, all of those things, soli Deo Gloria, and all that. For mine, it's going to be about the Matthias, the migration,
mm.
and how the interconnection. Okay, I'm giving too much, but yeah, that's 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 what I'm working on. Really, it's
Wow.
based off of that. Yes, I wanted to go in depth and like, wait, I should.
That's a fantastic one, really. Thank you. Thank you very much for mentioning. And just in case we have some viewers who are watching this interview and would love to get a copy of any
Uh,
of your work, on what platform are they available on for purchase?
this book is on Amazon. This one's on Amazon. The others are on my site. They're on my site easily gotten via my website. So
And I left a link in the description part of this interview where interested viewers can get a copy of Pamilerin Jacob's books directly on Amazon, on Barnes& and Nobles, on his website, and also another platform. I also left a link to his social media pages for possible following, as well as a link to the fundraising where interested viewers would love to donate. Thank you very much, Pamilerin Jacob, for coming up on the show to talk about your impressive
thank
body of
you.
work and your amazing community work you're doing in the literature field. It's quite commendable, it's quite beautiful. I admire it a lot myself. And I want to say thank you very much for coming on today. This has been wholesome.
Hey, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for all that you do also. I mean, incredible. Thank you for the consistency. I always think about how that's the most important metric for all that we do. everyone's doing, and it's just been consistent for years and years and
Yeah.
years. So yeah, well done, well done too. Honestly, because I know just how heavy it can feel some
Yeah.
days when you are other concerns. So yeah,
Yeah.
you too. Thank you.